Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about how to clear coat with spray cans. So it's not always easy to get a good gloss from spray cans when you're clear coating. Clear coat depends a lot on how much volume you can put out and how evenly you can put it on there. And that can be difficult when you're working with spray cans. So I get a lot of questions where people are telling me that they're not getting a proper gloss out of the spray can, they're not sure what they're doing wrong, they're following the instructions on the can, and sometimes those instructions say crazy stuff like 5 really thin coats 2 minutes apart and crap like that. I've had reasonable success clear coating with spray cans, and the way that I do it is the same way that I would use pretty much any paint out of my paint gun. I use the same methods for enamels and polyurethanes that I use with a paint gun. Now lacquers are a bit different, but for today we're going to be using an enamel because that's among the most common types of spray cans, and I'm going to basically do it as though I were doing an entire spray can paint job, except I'm just going to show you how to do the clear coat. So what I'm clear coating today is just this metal panel. If you watched my how to do ghost flames with water-based paints video, this is the panel that I painted in that one, and I said I was going to use it for this tutorial, so I might as well. So let's start by alleviating some of the confusion about how many coats you need. A lot of people think that more coats is better. More coats are better? More coats are better. Not necessarily the case. More coats will typically give you a thicker finish, but if you put, well, for one thing, that's not necessarily good, and for another, if you put on too many coats without at some point letting it cure completely and sanding in between, you're liable to get delamination, or if you're recoating too quickly, you could have a problem with the paint underneath not drying, and then the solvents basically bursting through the surface and creating pock marks, or the whole surface being not quite hard. There are lots of problems you can get if you don't do this properly. So today I'm going to show you how I do it, and also the trick that I use to get proper volume, proper volume and flow from spray cans. So with very few exceptions, I use 3 coats. And this is going to be no different. What I'm going to do is put on one light coat to begin with. I call it a tack coat. I think it's called a tack coat. It's not just me who says that. And that's to promote adhesion for the rest of it, where I put on the other 2 coats. Now the other 2 coats are going to be significantly wetter. And we're going to wait for the first coat to flash off, about 10 minutes. And then I'm going to put on the second coat heavier, wait another 10 minutes or so, and put on the third coat. If at that point I'm not satisfied with how much clear is on there, I will wait a day or 2. That's not going to be the case here, I'm 100% sure of it. But I would wait a day or 2, then I would sand it lightly with 600 or 800 grit, make sure it's nice and flat, and then I'd put on another 2 or 3 coats. So the first coat doesn't need to go on particularly heavy. Like I said, it can be relatively quick. And I'm working with a fairly large surface area here. I've got about a 24 by 16 piece. And that can be a challenge when you're working with something like a spray can that only has a very small spray pattern. So, these are well shaken already, by the way. The trick to alleviate that, and I'll zoom in for my next coat so you can see it a little better, is to just use 2 of them. Now, it does take some practice. Don't just go ahead and pull out your guitar and start spraying it with 2 cans. You kind of have to learn how to do it. I like to keep my hands close together and make sure that these are working in conjunction with each other. You can do them right next to each other or above and below, which is what I do so that I get more of a fan pattern. What you should not do is spray like this. That will create a very wet area in the middle, or if you try and compensate for that, in all likelihood a very dry area in the middle. That's not something that you want. So make sure that you're moving your 2 spray cans together, and it's easiest if you have some part of your 2 hands touching. Now you can do it like this, especially after some practice, but in order to keep them moving smoothly and in conjunction with each other, it's easier if you touch your thumbs together or something, okay? So I'm just going to do my first light coat here to show you from this angle, and then I'll bring the camera in closer so you can get a better look at what I'm doing. By the way, always wear a respirator when you're doing this. Alright, here's a closer look for coat number 2. As you'll see, this makes it much easier to get a nice wet coat than if you try to do this with one can. It's also much faster. Alright guys, so our third coat is on here now and has been drying for a while. Unfortunately there's some dust in it, but I'm painting in a dusty place. You should avoid that if you can. Anyway, it's got a pretty decent gloss. You can probably see, yeah, it looks like you can see my reflection in there. Not bad for a spray can job. Now obviously if you want to improve upon this, you can polish it after. I have some videos, several videos depicting that process. So feel free to check those out if you don't know how to do a cut and polish. But as far as the standard spray can clear coat job goes, I think this is the best way to do it. So hopefully you found that reasonably useful, particularly if you're planning on doing some clear coating with spray cans. Bear in mind that clear coat typically is done a little heavier than your average paint, so if you're doing a gloss paint or something like that, a gloss enamel, you can use the same technique. If you're just trying to do a standard color coat, maybe move a little quicker, don't put quite so much on. And that about covers it. Now my usual caveat applies to this. You're going to get better results if you use a paint gun. Well, especially if you know how to use a paint gun. But for a spray can job, that way seems to work fairly well. Anyway, thanks for watching. Like I said, I hope it was somewhat useful for you. And yeah, have a good one. See you next time.